What's up, everybody? This is your brother Harrison. Brand new episode of the Melanated Convo podcast, and I'm happy to have my guest back on the show with me. This is my brother, man. He's been rocking with me for a little bit of time now. Maybe the third time we've been able to work together. Every time has been a pleasure. So everybody, get ready for a real live history lesson today, because this is the last day of Black History Month. You know what I mean? The show will actually come out sometime in March, but nonetheless, on the show with me today, my brother, Dr. Philip Shock Matthews, aka Rev Shock. How you doing today, Rev?
I'm good, my brother. How you feeling?
I'm feeling good, man. Happy to have you back on the show, brother, this
I'm
new
glad to
year.
be back, man.
Yeah, yeah. So how you been doing, man?
I can't complain, man. I've just been busier, as the old country people would say, busier than a centipede in a toe counting contest.
definitely. I've been definitely following everything you've been doing. Everybody, do me a favor, real quick. Hit the like button, subscribe to the Melanated Convo podcast. You can find the show on YouTube and all the digital platforms as well. So, with my brother Rev Shock today. So, Rev, everybody, there's a piece my brother wrote called "The Trinity of Black Trauma." So, Rev, talk me through that real quick. The Trinity of Black Trauma. Where first I want to know, where did you write that piece? Like, where can somebody find it if they wanted to read it?
They can go I publish papers on academia.edu.
Got it. That's really cool.
As a PhD, I wanted to do more than just have the designation. I wanted to do hardcore research
Mm,
and put it into a hardcore research community where all the references and everything, a lot of us sometimes come on and we talk about a lot of stuff, but we have no references or receipts.
hmm
So on academia.edu, you can go and click on the references where the information was obtained.
Got it.
So you can get the first source information. So I've written, quite a few papers now, published a few papers, published a bunch of books, obviously. And sitting up one night, as they say, minding my dammy, and the this thing called, of course, I'm the Black Trauma czar and guru,
Yes, sir.
because I am also part of my as I'm a research scientist in what's known as Africana phenomenology,
Yeah, I
which
was
is a
going to ask you
branch.
about that.
Yeah, it's a branch of philosophy, and it's a small group of scholars in that space. And I learned about it from Dr. Marie Charles out of the United Kingdom.
Hmm.
And she hit me to Gordon Wilson and Paget Henry, who gave the term Africana phenomenology. And so it's about first sight consciousness and Black scholars being able to put their eye on it and explain it from their individual lived experience and perspective. And so I thought that was quite fascinating. My doctorate is in metaphysical science and philosophy. So, it was a perfect fit. But then I looked at my research gaps, and my research gaps are Black trauma, Black mental illness, but also the digital divide because
Hmm.
I'm a techie. I launched a .com back in 1998,
Wow.
and there was a digital divide then. There's
Hmm.
always been a digital divide.
Hmm.
And because I have mastered AI and Chat GPT, I launched and wrote my own GPT. So I created Black Trauma GPT
Oh, wow. Wow. Is
that
that
takes
something
out
you've?
all of the biases.
Wow. Wow. That's
Huh?
that's no. That's no.
Yeah,
That's
yeah. It
interesting,
takes
Rev.
out all of the biases from the AI. You know how AI is biased because it was made by white people. Well, I took
Hmm.
all of that stuff out there and programmed it for us, by
Interesting.
us, as a result of Black trauma and Black mental health. So, one of the books that I just recently wrote, and one of the things that I recognized that was going to be a game changer in um, mental health is the fact that you can go on Chat GPT and have a mental health conversation and solutions
Hmm.
to your problem. Now it can't give you a diagnosis other than telling you where to go, but you look at the lives that could be saved from having a conversation on your cell phone. Again, nothing's wrong with black people. Something happened to black people. So I
Mm-hmm.
wanted to program a GPT with all of the black scholars in it to be able to go in and ask any question as it relates to black trauma, black mental illness, and
Mm-hmm.
get an answer. So that was part of the motivation and the genesis, if you will, of me looking at this thing called the Trinity of trauma,
Mm-hmm.
of black trauma.
Yeah, definitely. That
And go ahead, brother. I'm sorry.
well, no, it was very interesting to me, Rev, because a lot of times we mention institutionalized racism a lot. That's like a
Hmm.
catchphrase that a lot of people use. What I liked
Hmm.
about the piece that you wrote is you detailed how these institutions actually worked. Like the doctrine of discovery, man, was something, and I know a little about history, but I didn't know anything about the doctrine of discovery. And Rev, that's like the beginning of how a lot of the things we see today, like we know all the stages through our history, what we've been through, but that's something I wasn't aware of, and that looks like that could have been the catalyst to all the stuff we've
Absolutely.
seen in the 1900s. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Well,
Mhm.
it began the Ma'afa.
Yeah.
That was the doctrine of discovery, is the doctrine of the Ma'afa.
Hmm. Hmm.
And you would not have Christopher Columbus without that doctrine. And
Exactly.
Christopher
That's what I was
Columbus
reading.
didn't discover America; he was doing recon
Hmm.
on America and going back and saying, "Okay, this is a non-Christian continent. It's all black people there because, of course, they weren't Native Americans; there were Africans that turned into Native Americans. So
Hmm.
that's another misnomer that we all have to deal with. But as a result of the Pope giving out, and it was I think it was two popes. It was Pope
Hmm.
Alexander and oh gosh, what's the other pope's name?
Yeah, I definitely seen you had.
Pope
Yeah.
Nicholas, Pope Nicholas the fifth, and
Hmm.
Alexander the sixth, and they are the ones in Spain that said, yeah, if it's a non-Christian continent or
Hmm.
land, you have the right to basically take that land as your own and do with it whatever you will and make those people submit to the will of this false indoctrination called religion and this imaginary white boy on a stick. All of that was made up,
Hmm.
right? So that's a that's a whole nother show to come back on, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Because the doctrine of discovery, it looks like now. Give me a version of, or actually, first before that, because I want people to go read it themselves, Rev. And
Sure.
believe me, y'all, hey, if you go read his piece, you better be literate. You know what I mean? Because he got the words on there. You know what I mean? It was beautiful though, brother.
I'm trying to bring
Uh,
my people up, man, where we're
y-
all on the same level. If I got a
yeah.
PhD, you got one too.
There we go. There we go. Instead of talking down to him, you see him eye to
Absolutely.
eye.
I'm talking
Yep,
with. I'm
you goddamn
talking
right.
with.
And so it's a
Right.
beautiful piece, brother. But give us a quick synopsis of the document of discovery, like what the doctrine of discovery, like the antithesis of them creating it and how it kind of still affects us today. Because when I was reading it, I was thinking, damn, it's a lot of things that are implemented today that use that same ideology.
Oh, no doubt about it. Well, okay. If you remember, we all sit up and talk about, and a lot of people have compared me to this beloved scholar, Nana, Dr. Frances Cress Welsing.
Hmm.
So if you remember Dr. Welsing in the color theory, she talked about the code, if you will, that all white people are on, that they get together and they follow.
Hmm.
Well, guess what is it that they're following? They're following the doctrine of discovery. It's the only way for them to have survived.
That's deep.
It's the only way for the European to have survived being it that they've always been and are the first minority group or race on the planet.
Mm-hmm.
We've always been the majority. So imagine them coming out of the caves and over time becoming literate by going back and forth to Egypt, aka Kemet, and other parts of Africa, getting educated, and then coming back and figuring out this is how we intellectually have to take over the land and
Mm-hmm.
take over and rule these people.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to understand that this is what created what we call the white boy on the boat. For Columbus to come over here, and it was a justification. The doctrine of discovery is a justification of slavery, colonial exploitation of Africa. So this was the doctrine well established before the Berlin Conference. You know, most of us
Mm-hmm.
just know about these events, but we don't know the origin of
Yeah.
these events and how they all intersect,
Mm-hmm.
and racial hierarchies and discrimination, all of cultural disruption and loss, economic disparities, resistance and resilience. All of this was targeted, and it was deliberate,
Mm-hmm.
brother H. It was not, racism is not natural, and racism is not happenstance. Oh, you just happen to be racist. No, it's embedded.
It's embedded.
It's epigenetic.
Definitely.
It's an ideology that gets so deeply embedded in this group,
Mhm.
they don't know how to function without it. Because
Exactly.
to function without it means that they have to submit to the reality, one, that they're second frequency, they were second here. Two, they didn't invent anything, they
Mm.
co-invented everything and took it and stole it. And three, they have to admit that they um, placed uh, their false history on top of us to
Hmm.
erase and whitewash us.
You know
And
what?
in their minds, if you read the document, it's in perpetuity. Slavery was not supposed to end.
Exactly. Yep. Yep. Because I think listening to a lot of black folks, I think these type of conversations are so important, Rev, because when you have an institution that indoctrinates a people the way that they did us, and they use the laws at the time, you know what I mean? They
And
use
they
the
wrote the
actual
laws.
they
They
use the laws to
wrote
do
the
that to
laws.
us, and they still doing it
Yeah,
now. You know what I mean? And people think when you talk about the slavery and beyond slavery, people sometimes have a problem with those conversations. But look,
sure.
man, some of those things, some of that stuff was put into like autopilot where we have the same thing now, Rev. They just calling it something different. You know what I mean?
Absolutely, 100%.
Yeah.
100%. You know, how if you ever get into a debate or an argument with a second frequency Amu, they'll particularly on the concept of slavery, they'll always try to retort, "Well, we didn't invent slavery. Slavery's always been around."
Hmm.
Yeah, well, go read the Doctrine of Discovery, asshole, and then you will understand that that had nothing to do with Africa. There is not one document ever found, written, or produced by an African that allows an African nation, group, or continent to go and devour and divide and conquer another continent.
Hmm. Exactly.
Never been done.
Hmm.
We had our do we have our problems and issues? Absolutely, but we don't engage in genocide.
Not at all, Rev. And it looks like, like I was saying, even to today, when we look at um, institutionalized pieces of racism like eminent domain and
Sure,
things of that nature, all these laws that they create to disenfranchise us, it's very interesting that this one was almost the mother of most of them. Like there's a lot of incidents that we see in history in this document actually spearheaded a lot of that, Rev. So would would is this something that you've known about for a while, Rev, or did you just discover this recently?
did I discover the doctrine of discovery?
This
Yeah.
guy-
Yeah, I'm the black Christopher Columbus over here, right? I'm Negro Damas over here. That's what I'm
Oh
doing
man,
right
come on
now.
now.
I've heard of the doctrine of discovery, but I wanted to. Uh, part of my part of metaphysics is, and also being a philosopher, is asking the why question. In other words, finding and locating the cause of the effects.
Hmm.
And what happens normally, unfortunately, is most of us, we are chasing an effect with another effect. We really don't know the cause. So, one of the causes was when I went back, and this was some years ago, when I discovered the second part of the Trinity of Black Trauma was when white people were invented as a matter of law
Mm-hmm.
in America. That there is no such thing as a biological white person. That's an ideology that was invented to permanently in perpetuity keep Africans in slavery and
Mm-hmm.
enslaved. So that was a big deal of the history. But then, by working with Dr. Marie Charles, I learned about the three H's, which is known as Heidinger, Hegel, and Herschel. And what was interesting about this group of men in the 1800s was that, and this is where the concept of phenomenology, in terms of Africana phenomenology, where it comes from,
Yeah, I
that
was going to ask you about that, Rev, to break down phenomenology for me because I had to look it up. You know what I mean? I wasn't familiar with the term, but I wanted you to break that down for us when you can.
absolutely. Well, Herschel was the guy who invented the term and the concept of phenomenology and
Mm-hmm.
psychology. And uh, it was Paget Henry who invented Africana phenomenology, which is basically first sight, first. It's when you tell your story from your perspective
Hmm.
because you were there.
Got it.
It's
First
so
hand knowledge.
Africana
Got
phenomenology is we should be the only ones telling our story
it. Hmm.
and
Got it.
sharing our story. We should not be taught our story by any other ethnicity other than us.
Hmm.
That's
Makes more sense.
phenomenology. Give you an example. Go to a Jewish person and ask them, would you allow a German to teach your child about the Holocaust?
Mm-hmm. That's a
That
fact.
shuts the room down. Everybody, all the Jews get quiet, right?
That's a fact.
So we know that that's that. So we're doing ourselves a dis. So as a research scientist, I want to give this to the community so that you have the ability to go and get this information yourself. So you can literally go to blacktraumagpt.com and pull this research up
Mm-hmm.
for your on your phone. So I wanted it to be accessible to everybody. But so the three H's, Hegel, this is what he said. This was in the 1800s that he said this. It is characteristic of the blacks that their consciousness has not yet arrived at any at the intuition of any objectivity. And he is a being in the rough. Africa has no historical part of the world.
Hmm.
Has no movement or development to exhibit. Now, so let's go. Let's take this now. We have the doctrine of discovery. We have the invention of white people,
Mm-hmm.
and then we have the three H's. Right? So Heidinger was a eugenics and Nazi lover. So he was about racial purity,
Hmm.
right? So we know about what that was an American-made thing. Hitler didn't invent the concept of eugenics. We did. The America did. Um, and so as a result, now you're beginning to stitch together the mindset, the psychopathic mindset of this group that we look at and try to humanize. but you can't humanize something that might not be human,
Wow.
right?
Wow.
So when we look at, and I remember talking to a scholar about this because this was a difficult reality for me to come to, and that is that we might be dealing with a different species of quote unquote human, because a human ecologically, there's a concept known as fascination violence, and it's when you get aroused and excited for hunting a human. That is something that is instinctive and distinctive in
Mm,
this second frequency group. We see that in policing, we see that in war, we see that in all the movies, all the revenge, all of the mafia, all of this hunt, 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 hunt another human.
that makes a lot of sense.
Um, so that is not something we do. That's not something that's integral to our ethos as Africans, as first frequency people. And so, uh, hunting for sport, that's a different thing. We never hunt for sport. We hunt it for food, to
Wait,
eat and to survive.
one thing, real quick, before you continue, real quick. So, before you continue, Rev, something I want you to touch on real quick. So, give me, because in the piece, I seen a little bit about it. Break that down for everybody when white people were actually created, like the construction of it, like everything that they
Oh,
were using.
sure, sure, beloved. Thank you. Yeah, and I filibuster and go on and on. Just
It's all
stand up
good.
and pay attention.
It's all
Get
good,
your
Rev. I
bald head
got you.
ass up. I'm trying to talk. That's all you have to do. Um, so
I
so
got you.
uh, well, the laws were called anti-miscegenation. It took me 3 years to learn how to pronounce that. But the anti-miscegenation laws um was a cluster of laws that well let me go back to go forward a little bit. So in response to Bacon's rebellion, so at one point there was no concept of black or white, right? There was
Mhm.
just you were from whatever land you were from. You were from England, or you were, or your religion. You were
And that's
Catholic,
how
you
they
were
addressed
Christian,
you. And
and
that's
that's
how they
how they
addressed. That's
addressed
how they
you.
identified you. Got it.
You know, I am so and so of Scotland. I am so and so
Got it.
of
Yeah.
this of I'm a Christian this, a Christian. There's no such thing as black or white. It was not
Mhm.
even a concept. And so if you go back in history books, there is nothing written where Europeans were labeled or labeled themselves or referred to themselves as white.
Mm.
White is an American made thing in colonial times. Now, because of the greed of the um, colonizers, and the tobacco landowners, nobody was really eating.
Mm.
So it was the first time that the Native Americans, the Europeans that were imported, to the indentured servants, the slaves, everybody got together and worked together to rebel, and it was headed by a dude named Nathaniel Bacon, and that's why it's
Yeah.
called Bacon's Rebellion. Well, the campaign was so successful, it scared the ish out of the colonial elites, because America almost didn't happen. It went on for 2.5 years, where the rebellion was basically breaking into the homes of the rich and stealing all of their property, stealing back their land. Imagine now.
Wait, Reverend, you saying the rebellion was a group of, it was us
It was
mixed together.
everybody.
It was
It was
everybody mixed
everybody
together. There
because
was,
it was
because there
about
was no,
economics. It wasn't about color.
got it. There was no idea of color at the time. It was just what
None.
country you from. So
Right.
that didn't separate us. Got you. Got you.
Right. What could, because everybody, it was like San Francisco all over again. It was like
Mm.
everybody was married to each other.
Hmm.
There was slaves would marry indentured servants and not and free people. Uh, 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 Europeans would marry Africans. Africans would. It was a admixture.
Got it. Got
So
it.
there was no concept of race. Real that all race is invented,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Social
So it's
construct, definitely.
construct. So as a result of this rebellion that was so successful, um, the colonizers basically said, "Hey, we have a strategy that we're going to put in place that will uh, hopefully be a strategy that we will never that the Africans and the slaves and the indentured servants will never rise up again
Hmm.
to take our land and to harm us." And that was when they created the divide and conquer strategy known as anti-miscegenation. Now, in that group of laws, this is in 1681, by the way. So this was before the first meeting of Congress. This was before the United States Constitution. This was before the
Hmm.
forefathers, hundreds of years, a hundred years before the forefathers and the Constitution and all that stuff.
Got
So
it.
when you think of like Jefferson and all of that stuff, talking about
Hmm.
black people smelling all of them were white supremacists at birth, before birth, because it was already baked into the ideology and the psychology of the land based upon the laws of this group in 1681. Now they started conceptualizing this in 1664. So it's been a minute
Hmm.
before they hated the fact that the African men were African men and had dominance. Because part of the psychology, here's a little sidebar a lot of people don't know. Back then, wealth of a the status of wealth was to be fat and
Hmm.
unattractive. So
Hmm. That mean
white,
that.
so
Yeah, that makes us good
European
money.
men were fat
Hmm.
because that means they don't do labor,
Got it. Yeah.
right?
Yeah. That
They
makes
don't
sense.
do labor. So the ones who are in shape and their muscles are rippling and they're strong, those are slaves, and so they're supposed to
Mm.
be lower class or no class at all.
Hmm.
Well, the same genetic factor that is today, what happens when a snow bunny sees a beautiful black king?
Come on now. Same thing.
They want
Yep.
a little bit of that jungle fever. So
Hmm.
what was happening? They were shipping out, and during that time, there were not enough women for the tobacco colonizers.
Hmm.
So they literally shipped women, European women from England to America to get with a colonizer. But guess what
Hmm.
they did?
Wait, and tell me what. Give me a framework. Was that in the 1600s as well?
Yes,
Okay,
yes,
late 1600s.
yes,
Got it.
yes. So guess what they did? Those women, they got jungle fever. They didn't want to be with the fat European. They
Hmm.
wanted to be with tall, dark, and handsome, as Dr. Frances Cress Welsing depicted in her work.
Makes sense.
So that was where the jealousy part of that was, and then of course the phallus. We had baseball bats for penises. Okay, we didn't have we, you know, over the years because of nutrition, things have maybe shrunk up. But back
Yeah.
then, we had baseball bats that was just tree trunks just sloshing around like an elephant's, So that when a European, and then when a European woman sees that, you
Hmm.
want the exotic, you want the so so this was another aspect of the hate that they had for this group, this first group, these first frequency people. So they created these laws, and they invented white people, to which other and gave them privilege. Privilege means private law,
Hmm.
and so they gave them privilege that you had to earn the right to be white. If you were not white, you had no rights whatsoever. Okay,
Yeah.
so part of that was three laws that I always talk about that I get from Dr. Jacqueline Battlelora. One was a person of African descent could not vote or run for office.
Mm-hmm.
Two, a person of African descent could not own guns or gunpowder. So at that point, that's when the African man became a boy
Hmm.
because he could no longer protect his queen or his family or himself, nor could he feed his family or himself. So
Yeah.
that's when he became a boy,
Damn.
and we see some of that manifesting in how we act today,
That's the fact.
because what that one law did, it gave European men access to our women
Mm-hmm.
and all women.
Mm-hmm. And at the
So the
same
European
time,
man now can take
yeah.
care of my black queen, but I can't. He can protect my black queen, but I
Mm-hmm.
can't. You see
Yeah.
how that works?
Yeah, yeah, and at the
So
same time, it's our women may be looking at us a particular way because we're being emasculated. And damn, Rev, it's such a trip to me to look at where we're at now. When you look at hip hop, or you look at any of the common cultural phenomenons that you see that are black people, all
mhm,
that dysfunction, this shit been brewing for a real long time. Rev, it looks like
right,
it's been on autopilot for a while, but it started like much longer than than most people know. You know what I mean? Because most people
right.
just go back to slavery and they're not aware this been in autopilot way before that.
No doubt.
Mm-hmm.
No doubt. And understand that there over time has been a resentment. Why can't you protect me? When they wanted to go and rape your wife or your
Mm-hmm.
daughter
Mm-hmm.
and gang rape her, why couldn't you protect me, daddy? Why couldn't you protect me, husband?
Yep.
Because I
Yep.
would be lynched and killed and burned. So I could not, because I don't want them to kill you. But nonetheless, she didn't understand that. Over time, that became a resentment.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the reason why today, as Dr. Welsing talked about in the movie, the opening scene of the movie, um, what was that movie with Tyrese and Taraji P. Henson?
Baby boy.
Baby Boy.
Yes.
Why we refer to our houses as cribs,
Mm-hmm.
our women as mama, our friends as boys and sons.
Yep.
We are children.
Mm-hmm.
We fight over sneakers and nursery rhymes, which is rap, and that's why we act like boys. But we're
Mm-hmm.
grown men. But because we have had that arrested development, that trauma, we grow up. We don't grow up. We just get bigger. But
Mm-hmm.
let me go back. Now, the third law was the most devastating, and we see that in law enforcement and the legal system, and that is you could not take any legal action against this new designation of humanity called white people.
Hmm.
So that brought in the Casual Killing Act. So
Casual
you can,
killing act.
yeah, the Casual
Hmm.
Killing Act. You can kill a slave that's acting up and acting out, and you won't go to jail.
And when
We
was
see
that
that
created,
happen all
Rev?
the
Was
time.
Are we still in like the late 1600s?
Yeah, I think the casual. Don't get me the quote exactly, but I know the Casual Killing Act. I think was 17, like I want to say '05 or something like that. But it was
Wow.
1700s for the Casual Killing Act. But
Wow.
the anti-miscegenation was what ushered in slavery
Mm-hmm.
and ushered in race. There was no concept of race, so they had to get the scientists of that time to create what's now known as social Darwinism, to create, the blooming box of the caucus head is prettier than the Africanoid head, or what. All of
Yeah.
that stuff is completely bullish and made up.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But they had to do that to keep justifying killing the indigenous population of Africans, and then of course going to Africa and demolishing and demolishing the land and demolishing our bodies as a result of ushering in slavery.
Wow.
So
So
that was. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
no, so I was gonna ask you real quick, Rev, because I think learning a lot of this information for me can almost be the key to getting like a better understanding of black people. When I see black people who are dysfunctional, even though, if you're an adult, I think after a certain period, you should equip yourself with knowledge or whatever. But sometimes I see black people operating on autopilot, and knowing information like this helps you get a better perspective of what they may be going through. So I think all of us getting this perspective and learning our history, I think that's like a unifying mechanism too. Some people may think it's just information, but I think it can also unify us. Why do you think so many black people don't get a whiff of this type of info, Rev, and want to dig into it or learn more so they can get a better understanding of why they may be in the situation they in today?
Well, I'm actually doing research on that, and what I have found thus far is known as social and generational amnesia. It is a divide and
Mm,
conquer strategy that is embedded epigenetically at before birth that causes us to be not only passive but to forget the history of the previous generation and not be interested in the plight and fight of the previous generation.
mm.
And then we become individualized, self centered in our 0 to 30 to 40 to 50. And then by the time we're in our 50s and we start waking up, we don't know how to collapse that time back. Because
Makes
it's in
sense.
our 50s that we start saying, hey, something ain't right here.
Something
It's
ain't
in the
right. Yep.
40s and 50s. Something ain't, hey, this don't make. But when you're in your 20s and 30s, you're trying to, one, you figure you have more time. Two, you figure you're smarter than your parents. And so you're going to be able to figure it out and you're chasing your dream relationship and
Hmm.
the things that you're supposed to have. You're not thinking about the fact that you are on a slave ship called America KKK. You're
Hmm.
not thinking about, and this is why they keep you in civil rights, right? This is why they made Martin Luther King. Now, Martin Luther King was used to be the most wanted person on the planet, but they made Martin Luther King the staple versus Malcolm X
Hmm.
versus Marcus Garvey because they King was someone was trying to bring everybody together.
Hmm.
So that's a
Yeah,
pacifist of slavery,
it
obey
is.
your master.
Yeah.
Malcolm wasn't having that, nor was Marcus. It's like
Hmm.
rebel, revenge, blow their ass up, get your land back. Let's do it. So they don't want that. So you have a generation that forgets who they are and they don't want to know. There's a lot of black people, brother, don't want to know this information.
Hmm.
And think about the layers of
That's the
deception.
thing.
See,
That's the thing. You
I
can
can't
find
go around
yourself.
telling
Yeah.
you that Jesus never walked the earth and was completely fabricated so that it would enslave their people.
Wow. Wait. So break that down. You're saying the creation of the Jesus figure, they created it just to control the people around them, opposed to somebody black or someone from a different race.
Absolutely. Well, first of
Hmm.
all the people at that time were illiterate. So the only people that could have written the Bible were the aristocracy.
Hmm.
Those were the Romans. So as a result of that, um, the other part is there are no artifacts. See, here's the thing: they dig us up, and they have digged down to 200,000 years below the earth, and everything. The deeper they go, the blacker it gets. In order for a museum to get funding, it has to have an ancient Egyptian or Kemetic artifact. In other words, it won't get funded.
Hmm.
If
Interesting.
this imaginary white boy on a stick is real, where are the artifacts and why isn't that guy in museums?
Or at least something from him, right? I mean,
You well,
you would you would you would have
if
something.
his time and his group was
Hmm.
6,000 years old, to get to 100,000 deep, you have to pass 6,000 before you get to 100,000,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
You're telling me there's nothing. You've dug every thing up, and there's nothing. There's nothing. So there's evidence that Jesus Christ is the concept of Julius Caesar.
Hmm.
It's uh, uh, you have to go back and go to Flavian and the Flavians and all of that
Hmm.
wonderful history. But there's a difference between history and literature. Most of us conflate the two.
Hmm.
Literature is stuff that's made up. History is facts.
Got it.
and can
Got
be
it. No,
traced.
definitely. So,
So how badass Harrison Anderson is, but in a real sense, bro, you are badass because you were built for this.
hmm
This is what you do.
that's right.
Everybody cannot do what you do, and the only harm that you would do is to assume everybody else should.
Hmm. Wow, that's
So
powerful.
your job is to do exactly what you're doing now, and that is bring on the truth and let people absorb it in their own time, in their own way. Now, how many generations that will take, I don't know. But here's what I do know, which is going to be the next level of work that I'm doing. There is a distinct and deliberate extinction protocol to completely eliminate the African American in our history, completely. So
Leave it.
we've got 50 years, give or take, and none of this will matter anyway.
Wow. Wow. So when we look at though, so being realistic, Rev, about our fight here in this country, and we see how disheveled a lot of black folks are and don't know their history. Some just don't give a fuck. There's a lot of stuff going on out there. What's our path to liberation, Rev? Is it separating from white folks and we all get together and have a whole bunch of black Wall Streets or some shit like that? Is it like infiltrate the political system a little bit and have people in place that can give us that kind of information where we're still intertwined in this system? Like, what route do we take? Because at the end of the day, I know there's a lot of people like us out there that love our people and doing what we can, but we're not getting far enough fast enough to me. You know what I mean?
Sure, absolutely, 100%. Well, everything is multitudinous, right? Or multiplicable, and everything that you said is a part of that. But the most important thing is you can't give somebody or a group of somebody something you don't have. So
Hmm.
you've got to get your mind right first. You've got to address the fact that you have embedded trauma that you don't even know is there,
This is a fact,
that
Rev.
you are epigenetically walking around as a robot on behalf of white supremacy.
God damn. God damn. And the coldest part about that to me is I look at children and I can tell, I'm thinking about who could have raised them, the reason why they may seem unknowledgeable or don't know something. They're a child. But I see a lot of black adults, Rev, who just don't give a fuck about our history, but hate their mama or hate one of their cousins, hate somebody in their family. And I don't want to just give us a pass. Like if you see any type of dysfunction from a black person, we automatically say, well, no, they're suffering for something, so let them do whatever. But
Right,
you have to
right.
factor that in, right? If we're
Hmm.
talking about loving each other in this whole unifying shit, a part of that
Right.
is acknowledging what we've been through so you can look at each other differently, right?
That's correct. That's correct. But you have to do the work yourself first, right? What do they
So
say when
first,
you're on an airplane? If the cabin
plane's
loses
going down.
oxygen,
Yep, you put that on your face. You put that on your face first
before your child,
before
dude.
your child.
So can you imagine do if
That's the
that's
fact.
before your child? What
hmm
what am I do for cousin Bobo
hmm hmm
or
And
a
that's
stranger I've never met?
yeah, and that's
We
a
got to get me together.
I got to get me together. That's a funny thing, man, because sometimes they'll think the answer to solving their problems is they're not helping somebody enough, or they're not being a good enough
No,
person
because
to
we're
someone.
codependent. We're
Yeah.
so far down below
Yep.
that the moment you meet another brother or sister, about maybe 5, 10 minutes into the conversation, they're going to be begging for something
Hmm.
because we have such a need because there's such a deficit. So you
There's a
can't help somebody without first helping yourself and then being the example and then giving the recipe back to the community.
That's a fact. That's a fact because sometimes I think people look to help someone by doing something. Let me give you
Right.
some money. Let me give you some
Sure.
information about something. Well, a lot of times your help can be being the example. So all of us need to see something.
Absolutely.
Like if we're heading in a particular direction, we need to see something headed in that direction, and somebody can tell me about what I should do or how I
That's
should
right.
live. But sometimes you gotta see them actually doing it without no talking, just all
No
action.
doubt. No doubt.
You know what I
And
mean?
you don't need, it's also about not blocking somebody else's blessing.
Hmm.
They might need to go through that hell and that disappointment and that no way out situation so that they can develop. Because you have to understand what second frequency has done has embedded what we call arrested development in us.
Hmm.
That means we're not fully adults.
Hmm.
Our brains are not fully functioning and functional. So
Wow.
we're suffering from a social illiteracy individually and collectively.
See,
So that's why we can't solve our own personal problems.
and I think a lot of times, black folks, when you approach our history in this manner and speak about the things we've been through in this manner, a lot of black folks consider that hate, Rev. Like it's a thin line, man. It's some good people I know, black folks that's good people, but when you get to talking about racism with venom and like how matter of fact it was, they get kind of uncomfortable. It's almost
That's
like they don't want to use the
it,
white supremacy word. They don't want to point a finger when we have all the right in the fucking world to point a finger.
we've got the evidence. We're not
You
just
know what I mean?
reenacting the Trinity of Black Trauma. We got the evidence.
We have the evidence, so it's nothing wrong with saying it with your chest, and you can't conflate the two because it's not about hating nobody.
No,
Hate is
no.
like everybody convolutes it, which makes it difficult for us to actually solve the problem. White folks do it all the time, but I know black folks
Mhm.
who all that. They'll tell me you speaking that hate speech, Harrison. I'm like, hate speech? What fucking year is this? What you talking about? When
For real.
everything is centered around love, and they don't know. Sometimes when you love somebody, to them it look like you don't like them or something's wrong with them, but no, it's
Right.
out of love.
Absolutely. 100%.
You
Yeah,
know what I mean, Rev?
there is a situation that we are under, man, that
Excuse me.
a lot of us uh, we have to collapse that time and the knowledge and wisdom that I'm hopefully bringing to the community, to a select community, allows that time to be collapsed where you have those aha moments. Because as
Mhm.
you read that my paper, all of the information that you've already amassed over the last however many years you've been on the planet hit an aha moment. You had
Mhm.
multiple ahas because it filled in some of the blanks and explained some ish. Oh,
Great way to
that's
put it.
why
Filled in some of the
this
blanks.
is,
Great way to put
and
it.
then you were able to project it and see. Oh, that's why this group or we
Mhm.
this why we act this way right now.
Mhm.
Oh, I begin, and that's what we need. Once we have enough of us connecting those dots, that's the goal. So my job is to just be a purist with this research and be anal as hell with it to get it right and be the best phenomenologist I can possibly be as it relates to black trauma and what installs, imprints, and instills, excuse me, black trauma
Mhm.
in black people.
Yeah, that's why the work that you do is so important, Rev. And I'm just gonna continue to salute everything you do because it's funny. To me, I found the answer to or the direction I need to go into to find the answers to our problems and not take it out on myself. like
Hmm.
feeling like I'm a black man in this country and all this shit is happening. Yeah, I'm gonna be accountable, but I'm able to put things into its proper perspective because of history. It seems like too many people rather go to certain forms of social media or go to the news, right? I know a lot of black folks who heavy into CNN. I'm like, damn, you whether you know it or not, that information is giving you a perspective. Why don't you just go find the fucking truth? So when you hear this, you can really know how to place the narrative they're spinning. You know what I mean?
Absolutely, absolutely, 100%.
Mm-hmm.
You make a really great point, Brother Harrison, because um, whether some of us are looking at the news stations or CNN, then the worst part of it is some of us are listening to entertainers and rappers
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
for our news and information and our guidance. There's no population in the world that's going to make it.
Mm-hmm.
It's just not designed to be that way. You we have to think our way out of this. And even asking, I know this is going to really piss some people off, but asking for reparations is like asking the slave master, "Don't beat me so much."
Mm. Damn, Rev.
I
Damn, but
know.
okay, so you don't feel we're owed the money? I know you feel
No,
we
I
owe the
didn't
money,
say
right?
that. I didn't say that. I'm saying we are way, way too damaged to do a damn thing with it. All
Mm,
we're going to do is give it right back,
mm,
and we're going to destroy ourselves and
mm,
each other as a result of it. Because like the brother and the sister who ain't never had nothing, you go crazy, right? That's why we turn it up on the weekends. That's why we end up in prison and jail on the weekends, because we ain't used to it. And when you're not used to something, it destroys you. What you don't uh, um, own and know owns and runs you.
mm-hmm. That,
And so, yeah,
that's
there's a level of repair, but here's the kicker. Come on, this is common sense. You don't think that reparation is going to come with a price?
hmm. If it come
You
and
think
really,
they're going to say, "Hey, yeah, we enslaved you. We wrote the Doctrine of Discovery. We
mhm,
did anti-miscegenation. We wanted to put you in slavery and perpetuity. We did this in Africa. Hey, you know what? We're sorry. We're gonna give you the land back. We're gonna give you the money back and everything, and you guys get the. Are you dumb? Are you that slow that you think that? So here's how they do this. This is a technique. This is another divide and conquer technique. You've heard the term, if you can't beat them, do what?
join them.
You join them. So now here's what they're doing in Africa. The Chinese are going in Africa and breeding as many African women as possible and having multiple Chinese African children. So those children grow up now loving Chinese because they're half Chinese and half
Mm-hmm.
African. So they'll go back and they'll run the country based on the indoctrination of that Asian part of the country.
Shoot,
The
bro.
same is happening here in America. If I give you money and say I'm sorry, you're not going to come after me and revolt against me.
Hmm.
I become your ally, and you're going to now protect me. You're going to protect the person that repaired you.
Yeah, yeah. No, I
You see
completely
how that
understand what you.
psychologically
That
works?
that I haven't thought about it that way, Rev, and I completely agree with you. But I also feel that they owe us. You know what I mean? So I'm kind of
No, I
conflicted
I
about
concur.
it at times.
They owe us, but here's the problem, beloved. The debt that they owe, they honestly, in terms of morality, they could never pay it.
That's a fact. That's a fact. You can't repair what's been done to us.
You can't
Yeah,
repair the
yeah.
millions of children,
Mhm,
men, women that have been slaughtered, just slaughtered, and put into a perpetual mental illness in perpetuity, which is what we're doing right now.
mhm,
We're not crazy. We're just crazy from being captured, corralled, and controlled by
mhm,
crazy people.
mhm.
And
That's a
it
fact.
starts to look like mental illness when we don't have the answers. And I love all of my black scholars, but unfortunately, none of them are talking about what I'm talking about.
Hmm. Damn. That's interesting, Ref, because you look at the neighborhoods that we grew up in and a lot of the dysfunctions, and you see it continually happening over the generations. It can be a little discouraging at times, you know.
Sure.
But I
Absolutely.
think the information is the key to me, and it's funny how because of everything they've done to us mentally, we're just all over the place. And I think if we had the amount of people who swear by religion in our community, if we had those same amount of people swear by just loving black people and researching African spirituality, we'd be out of this shit in a couple days.
No
If
doubt. That's real talk,
the
man.
mentality
Yes,
shifted, you know what I mean? But
absolutely.
the same beast is attacking us on all front. When whether you in public school, whether you in the church house, whether you watching CNN, it's all the same people. You
The
know what I mean?
religion, the ideology that enslaved you cannot give you freedom.
1,000%, 1,000%, and a lot
Now,
of
you
us.
can even try to say, okay, well, Jesus was black. So when you, but, but the fact, first of all, the fact that we say, oh God, do you know God is a German word? It's Germanic.
Hmm,
Do you know the original term, the original sound and linguistic that the Africans, the Dogon, used to call on their divine? It's called Amma.
hmm,
So
um,
we don't we so we have okay, when you're birthed into a language, see this is why they knew what they were doing. The Africans on the continent have a better shot of getting out than we do because they at least have their language. Now, we don't have our original language.
makes
We
sense.
have theirs.
Makes sense.
So the words that I'm using right that you and I are using right now, particularly as it relates to theology, um, keeps us in the same loop. We're on the same treadmill. We're not. We might learn a new way to run on the treadmill, but we're still not moving and going anywhere
Hmm.
because we're still in the same language. So we have to step outside of um, theology. We have to step outside of our biology, the epigenetics, to look at our trauma. We've got work to do, and
Hmm.
it's multi layered. It's not something that just happens overnight, but it's something that might happen at night. But it's a result of there's a point where you wake up and say, wait a minute. The same happened to you. You
Hmm.
read the doc. You've been rocking with me for years, but you read the paper that I just put out, it made sense to you.
Hmm. Yep.
That
Made a whole lot of sense. And really, when you're searching for information and you're reading all these different books, a lot of times without knowing it, you're actually beginning to connect dots. And then you'll read something else and you'll see, okay, that's providing a missing piece from there. And you can continue from that point. But really, you just have to be interested in interesting things. And too many of us just don't seem to be interested on what we've been through. Like they don't see the benefit of how it can actually help them now. And at times I feel like shit, that may be the only thing that can help you now.
absolutely. Well, that's again that amnesia because I was talking to a psychologist and they were saying that this new group, of a generation,
Hmm.
um, they see events, not experiences.
Hmm. Wow, that makes
You,
sense.
you and I have had an experience with this group and we have stories that's been passed down that we can go back and corroborate. we
Hmm.
had we there but our kids, they're not even connected to 9/11.
How
they're
about that?
not con- they're not connected to Rodney King.
None of that. All of that is just a
They're not
video.
connected.
Yeah,
They
yeah,
don't
yeah.
see any of that.
Yep.
They see Breonna Taylor. They see George Floyd. They see Ahmaud Arbery. They see Tyrese. They see what's happening now, but they
Mhm.
can't make a connection to call it an experience because it's their first experience. It's their
Definitely.
first time seeing the event.
Hmm. Hmm. And
And so, That's
Yeah, definitely,
why we get caught up and locked up. And then by the time, now that embeds trauma, that's called vicarious trauma, by the way.
bro.
That embeds trauma. So then by the time that 20-year-old turns 40, they're starting to feel some kind of way and things are beginning to slow down. There are walls that they're not able to break through.
Mm-hmm.
There are ceilings that they're not able to penetrate. And now it's the first time after your 20s and 30s, you have to look at settling. This may be as good as it gets for me.
Wow. Wow. Damn,
Okay.
damn. This is such a powerful conversation, Rev. And the everybody, to me, the doctrine of discovery was so important because that's what they're still using to this day.
It's the
Like
code.
the ideology that they create to give themselves the mental aptitude to feel okay with fucking us over or disenfranchising us, whatever the situation may be. We need to realize where a lot of this stuff's come from, family, and it's institutionalized. So it's not going to be as overt as it used to be. You know, a lot of people always hit me and tell me, "Man, ain't no racism." I ain't never seen no racism. Well, you don't know our history like that. Then you don't know where to look.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
some of you Negroes just don't know where to look. You know what I mean, or you don't want to see it. But either or, without addressing that problem as a people, we can't really go too far. So that's why I
But
like to have.
isn't that the perfect slave? The perfect, think about this, brother. The perfect slave is a slave that doesn't know they're a slave.
Come on now.
That's a
So they
perfect slave.
because they're no threat to you at all.
None. None. But they're a threat to you and me because they'll kill you and me before they allow us to hurt or harm that white man.
All day long, and some people don't even realize they doing it. They look at it in a
Mhm.
literal term, but you can be
That's
protecting
right.
your white boss. You can be protecting
Mhm.
white Jesus.
That's right.
I
Come
know a
on
lot of
now.
white folks who will come to me, excuse me, in a ball cap and a t-shirt and looking real comfortable and being real loose, but let the white insurance man pull up at the door. Your ass getting your best tie. You're seeing how your hair, you seeing how your hair look. That's
That's
psychological.
right.
That's your daddy at the door.
That's right. That's right. No doubt. No doubt. No doubt. No doubt.
Dude,
Hello.
so a lot of you niggas really got a white daddy. Like you may not have had a real father in your life, but
Right.
you got a white one. And you don't even know
That's
it.
right. Yep.
He's like a three-headed monster. He's like your boss,
Now,
Jesus.
you know what that's exactly. You know what that's called, brother? Technically, trauma bonding.
Trauma bonding.
Trauma bonding. We are in a domestic violent relationship with second frequency. It's called capture bonding and Stockholm syndrome.
Stockholm syndrome, huh? You've been beating the
Okay,
shit out of
those
me. Now
three
I love you.
things, right? Hey, I beat you, but I don't beat you that often.
Hmm.
I beat you, but I don't beat you hard,
Yeah, and you get to making the same excuses yourself. And really,
right?
all of these mentalities is perfect for our oppressor because one thing you won't do is fight. The one
That's
thing
what you
you
won't
will
do.
you ain't gonna put up a fight
Hmm.
about none of the shit they know they about to start doing to you. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? It's all a big
Hmm.
game, Rev.
Hmm. Absolutely, absolutely.
Definitely. So I appreciate my brother Rev Shock coming on the show. This is it's always a pleasure to have my brother here, man. It's a history lesson. To me, I'm just documenting history and making sure I have all this information that these great brothers have, man. We have a lot of brilliant individuals in our community. And for me, and for a while now, in my mind, I treat these brothers like a LeBron James or like most people would do a celebrity. That's how I
Yep,
think of them in my
I
mind
see it the
because
same
it's
way.
it's an impactful thing. It's like, how are you going
Absolutely.
to impact my life? And some of these brothers is taking a step, man, because look, with the knowledge that a lot of people have, we can use this shit to be a pastor and get y'all out y'all goddamn money. We can go
Hmm.
teach some white kids. We can get the fuck away from you Negroes if we
Right.
wanted to, and it would be money in that. Like people don't
Absolutely.
realize you gotta
Absolutely.
figure out ways to get money when you are trying to consciously approach helping people, but there ain't a lot of money in that. This is a love
A
based
labor of
thing,
love.
a labor of
Absolutely.
love. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
So people
Now I'm
need
not.
to
They
appreciate.
they've deemed me not safe to be around white children because white children listen to me. They'll go back home and kill their parents and themselves. Mommy, daddy, did you do this? What? White kids say, I want to die. I want to kill everyone. I hate you. I'm like,
Ah,
no. Well, let little Timmy go around Rev Shock. Rev Shock can tell Timmy the truth.
tell Timmy
Yeah,
to
little Timmy, you ain't shit. You have never been no good. Your people are just debaucherous and the white devil. So go home and
oh
follow something sharp, Timmy.
yeah.
Uh,
Oh my
so
God, Rev, you something else, brother. But I appreciate having you
I
back
appreciate you,
on the
brother.
show, brother. Do me a favor and tell everybody where they can reach you. Your Instagram, all your social media.
Absolutely. So on Instagram, Rev Shock. On Instagram, you can go to shockmetaphysics.com, which is my blog. I post a lot of my articles and thoughts there. Of course, you can check out my Black Trauma GPT.com, blacktraumagpt.com. Go in there and take a deep dive and learn about what happened to us. Nothing's
Mhm.
wrong with this. Something happened to us.
Definitely, I appreciate my brother Rev Shock, one of the great minds in our community. I'm your brother Harrison. Follow me at Melanated Convo 100 on Instagram. Like I said, I don't want to date the show, but this is the last day of Black History Month. Everybody, it's a use Black History Month to prepare you to care about it every day. Like it should spark your interest. Find information, find people, right? That spark your interest to make you want to do this shit every day because I don't really look at it like that. Like I'm giving it up every day of the week. It's a
Right.
ongoing journey, but for people who
Absolutely.
may not be interested in history or may not have known about stuff, use it as a catalyst to get you where you need to be because we far away from that at this point. You feel me? So this is your brother Harrison, Melanated Convo podcast. Thank you for joining another episode, everybody. Me and my brother Rev Shock. I'm out.